This is your January 2026 market update report. We have all the numbers, record low sales, the lowest sales in over 2 decades. Absolute insanity. Let's get into it. This is the MLS stats report by area, Metro Vancouver. So all of Metro Vancouver, we have the breakdown here for detached properties, condos, and townhomes, the sales to active ratios here. We have a breakdown by neighborhood as well, which is amazing. Sorry, by city. So we have Coquitlam, for example, Maple Ridge, New West. We can see how those markets are performing. Graphs for the change in benchmark price, active listings, and sales. We have that for condos and then also townhomes as well. And then we're going to take a look at the change in benchmark price. You can see here average price per square foot. Lots of data to get into. I love this report. Very different to the report that you usually see, which is this one that is available to the public. If you want a copy of this type of report, and one thing I like about it too, is you can pick which neighborhood you're looking at. So let's, for example, look at Coquitlam. We hit search here. We look at the full report. Now this is just for Coquitlam, so we can get really granular. And even more so, we can look at the neighborhoods themselves. So we can look at how Burke Mountain is performing for detached homes. We can see the change in benchmark price, how many active listings and sales, and how that's changing over time. And then if we scroll to the bottom, we can look at benchmark price, the change in benchmark price just for Coquitlam that year or that month. So really nice report. If you want a version of this for your neighborhood, let me know. But for now, let's rip into the Metro Vancouver. So this is the Metro Vancouver market as a whole. So starting off here with detached properties, we are going to start here 2025 and 2024 of December. So we're looking at year over year. And then we can also refer back to November 2025 and we can see a month over month change. So active listings, year over year, we are up slightly 4% in active listings, but you can see November had way more listings, 6,000 versus 4,311. And we can see the same trend, way more listings in November versus December for condos and townhomes. So we have 6,660 listings down to 4,800 listings. And then for townhomes, we were at almost 2,000 listings, and then we're down month over month to 1,370 listings. One of the main reasons we see this big drop in listings month over month from November to December, it all comes down to the seasonality of the market. So by the time the winter rolls around, things start to slow down. But when December hits, we really see listings come off the market. This is mainly because a lot of sellers end up taking a break during the holidays. They expect a lot of buyers to take a break during the holidays. Not a lot of people want to make moves over Christmas, so they just end up taking the listings off the market, take a break, and then hit the ground running in the new year. This goes the same for sales volume. So typically, if there are fewer listings, there's often fewer buyers also shopping in the market because buyers also don't want to move during the holidays. So let's look at the seasonality of the sales here. 545 sales the month previous, and now looking at this past month, we are at 433. And then same here for condos, 950-ish down to 800. And then for townhomes, we're at 253 down to 230. So sales dropped across all of the property types month over month. One thing that would be good to look at is the year over year change. So for sales of detached homes, we are down 12% year over year. For sales of condos, we are down 11% year over year. And then for sales of townhomes, we are down 20% year over year. And then looking at benchmark price, it's about the same change across the board. So we're looking at a 5.3% change in benchmark price year over year, 5.3% change for condos year over year, and then a negative 5% change for townhomes. Days on market has gone up across the board for all the property types, which is normal for December. But overall, an already very slow market, like we can see here, the 1 year change in listings and sales from November, which was a little bit busier than December, we're still seeing double-digit changes. Like the active listings were 10.5% above the number of listings there were in November 2024. Sales were down 13.2% than the number of sales that were previous. This market is so slow compared to how it was performing previously. Usually when we see these types of numbers where we have a large amount of supply and supply increasing, and then we have very low demand and demand decreasing, it applies downward pressure on pricing. And we can see that across the board, across all the property types, when we're seeing these big changes year over year, double digit changes to active listings and sales. And if you looked at my other market update video, we can see here that we had the lowest annual sales in over 2 decades, which is absolute insanity. And we look here, the number of homes listed on the MLS, this is 35% above the 10-year seasonal average. And then when we look at sales, we are 25% below the 10-year seasonal average. So this really is a very different market for Metro Vancouver. Way too much supply, way too many listings on the market, and just not enough demand to really absorb it. And demand seems to continually be falling. We can see that's true when we look at the sales to active ratio. This really gives context to what is happening in the market. And we see it's broken down here: seller's market above 20%, buyer's market under 12%, and then balanced market in the middle. So for townhomes and condos, we're hovering around a 16.7 and 16.4% sales to active ratio, which is right here in the balanced market. Townhomes, they dropped in sales by 20%. So you can see their sales to active ratio in December 2024 was up here near the top in the seller's market, which is good for the sellers of townhomes at that time. And we can see that has slowly dropped as inventory has increased for townhomes and sales has decreased. So now they're kind of performing together with how we expect the rest of the market to perform. Detached market, however, has been underperforming compared to both condos and townhomes. We're looking at a 10% sales to active ratio. So we are in a buyer's market, easily a buyer's market for detached homes. It feels like it is a buyer's market. When I'm trying to sell detached homes, we're getting fewer people coming through the door. It's way more competitive. So we have way more listings that we're competing with. And oftentimes we're finding we're not just competing with a home just down the street, we're competing with the whole market segment. So we need to be way more competitive on price and make sure that when we get a buyer in the home, we're presenting to them properly and making sure we can get that thing sold with the few opportunities we have. So this gives a very good understanding of the market. Again, this is just factual things, looking at numbers. Numbers don't lie. So let's scroll down into the detached property report and let's look at how each of the cities are performing, and we can see if there are any outliers. So this is a good place to pause the video if you want to look at your specific sub area. This is in alphabetical order here on the right. Burnaby East and Burnaby North, we're looking at almost an 8% change year over year in benchmark price. Burnaby South, almost 9%. Holy smoke. So you can see these sales to active ratios in Burnaby these ones are hovering around 11-12%. Burnaby East is at around 16%, but holy smokes, big negative change in benchmark price year over year. Good if you're planning to purchase detached home in Burnaby. Let's see if there are any other outliers. New Westminster has dropped almost 7% year over year. And then if we look here, wow, Squamish is up 9% year over year in benchmark price. So Squamish is actually performing really well. If you look and watch my BC assessment video, you'll see that BC assessments across the Lower Mainland has dropped between 0 and 10%, which is quite a bit. But if we look at Squamish, it hasn't changed much at all. So relative to how the Lower Mainland performed, they are doing at least 0 to 10% better than us. And it shows here on the numbers. Looks like their benchmark price has been performing really well over the year. Their sales ratios are really good too. It looks like 12 divided by 56 is 21.4%. So they are on that borderline of a seller's market for detached homes, which is way different to what we're seeing here in the Lower Mainland. So really good for Squamish, I guess. And then we have Tsawwassen down 7.3%, Vancouver East down 7.6%, and then Whistler up 6.2%. So Whistler and Squamish are the only ones that are positive on benchmark price. And again, their BC assessments actually show the same thing. Now looking here, the change in benchmark price, we can see it's gradually going lower. This is from the start of the year, January 2025 on this left side, and this is December 2025 on the right. Benchmark price trending downwards. We see active listings trending upwards, leveling out, and then dropping off towards the end of the year. And then sales look like they have remained fairly flat. The scale is a little bit hard to see, but we're at 381 sales here at the start of the year. We peak at 657 in July, and then we're down almost to the same levels they were at the start of the year, to 433 sales. You can see a massive jump in active listings, and sales are kind of not changing too much at all. Now, a quick look at the condo report for Metro Vancouver. Let's see if there are any outliers here. So Maple Ridge is down 8% in benchmark price. Burnaby South is down negative 7.6% in benchmark price. So Burnaby South is getting hammered in benchmark price on condos and detached homes. What else do we got? Pitt Meadows, very similar to Maple Ridge, is also seeing a negative 8.4% decrease in benchmark price. Richmond down 6.3%, Vancouver East down 6%, and holy smokes, we got West Vancouver down negative 11%. If you're watching this and you live in West Vancouver, or you own a condo in West Vancouver, I am so sorry. If you're looking to buy one in West Vancouver, it's looking good for you. Go get it. Here we can see that big drop off in listings for condos, and then the benchmark price looks like it has dropped more aggressively than it did for a detached home. And then for benchmark price, we can see that same trajectory, starting the year off a little strong and then just tapering off as we get to the end of the year. And we can see that here as well. It's cool because you can kind of see where inventory and sales were a little bit more balanced. And then you can see where the inventory starts to peak and the sales can't keep up with it. As the inventory continues to build and build month over month, that's where we start to see this decline in benchmark price. And then moving into the townhome report, Burnaby townhomes are performing way better than Burnaby condos and detached homes. Coquitlam down 6.8% in benchmark price for townhome. Ladner down 6.3%. New Westminster down 7.3%. We have Port Coquitlam down 6%. Port Moody has not changed much. Port Moody townhomes seem to always be really popular, so that totally makes sense. And then we have some positives. Squamish and Sunshine Coast townhome prices increased. Vancouver East down 8.7%. Tsawwassen down 7.6%. And then Vancouver West down 7.4%. Some big changes here in benchmark price for townhomes. Looks like this is the place you want to be shopping in. And then also Coquitlam, which is nice to see. There's a lot of new construction happening in Coquitlam, so it's good to see that benchmark price is dropping there. Some more opportunities for buyers trying to get into the market. And then the graph here actually looks a little different for townhomes than it did for condos. Looks like it stayed a little bit more, for townhomes, it stayed a little bit more level up until the summer, and then that's where it really started to drop off. Nice. And then similar values, we can see inventory start to climb aggressively, and then the sales numbers are not changing that much. Start at 247, we peak at 393, and then we're back at 229. And then scrolling down here to the bottom, I don't really like to look at this average price per square foot. We can look at it quickly just because we're at $728 per square foot on average for townhomes and $720 for condos, for detached. Not really sure how this helps us. For condos, we are looking at an $851 average dollar per square foot. At the peak, we're hovering around $986. So we're down almost, $111 on average for price per square foot. Do with that as you wish. We already know benchmark price is down, but I do like this benchmark price graph. It shows it on a very large scale. So this is 2006, and then over here, we're back at 2026. You can see all the peaks and valleys from how the market was changing. This is in 2016, 2017. Here we move into 2022. We have another peak and another valley right afterwards in the start of 2023. Market has continued to trend upwards, and then here we are at the very end. Looks like we have a downward slope, downward trajectory for almost all market segments. Definitely for detached homes and condos. And if we look at townhomes, it looks like they're more leveled off here at the end compared to detached and condos. I do love the townhome property segment. It definitely seems to be the most balanced because you attract both downsizers from the detached market and then upsizers from the condo market. So it usually stays very active. There typically is way less supply for townhomes compared to condos as well. So it can be a little bit more competitive, perfect for a growing family. So townhome segment, fire. So this is your overview on sub areas and the details on the numbers for how the market is performing for this month. Let's get into it for next month. I'll see you there in the next market update. Any questions, leave them in the comments. And then if you want to have a report like this every single month for your neighborhood, your property, let me know. I'll send it to you and I'll see you on the next video. Peace.